I'm with Sam Mezec, who's been active campaigning in conjunction with the Electoral Commission. They've now reported. What's your position now, Sam?
Well, we want to campaign for option A. We think that what they have recommended there is pretty much in line with what we were set up to campaign for in the first place. When we first started, we weren't so much concerned about the practicalities of what reform would look like. We were more concerned about the principles behind it. We wanted a situation where every states member represented exactly the same number of people. Every voter had the same number of votes, and a system that was ultimately simple and user-friendly. And option A fits into that criteria perfectly. When you contrast that with option B, though, where some people will have 5 votes if they're in a parish with an uncontested constable's election. If you're in St Mary, your constable represents much fewer people than if you're in St Helier, and there's 2 votes done by 2 different voting systems. So it's obvious that option A is the one that fits in.
So option A is for 6 large constituencies, or each with 7 seats.
Exactly.
And they're, for want of a better expression, they're deputies, but they're not actually deputies as we know them now. Is that what your group actually wants, or is that the best of the deal that's on offer?
It's really close to what we were suggesting. The one thing that we were suggesting was that the constituencies should have been decided by an independent boundary commission that would take into account things like the parishes and culture and demographics or whatever, but ultimately would be deciding constituencies purely based on population, and could also adjust it every few years depending, if a housing estate is built in one part of the island, the population could go up quite a bit. So that was one thing we were hoping for, which obviously the Commission hasn't done. It has stuck to arbitrary parish-based boundaries.
It still finishes up with the magic 42, this number which came from we know not where. You're happy with that 42?
As long as the representatives are distributed fairly. I mean, my view has always been, when it comes to the number, I haven't really had a view whether there was too many or too few. The problem was how they're distributed, because at the moment you have a situation where St Helier and St Clement are really underrepresented, and given that those are the areas where you'd presume constituents would need the assistance of states members more because they rely on public services more than people might do in the country, you'd want those places to be represented adequately, and having a situation where the states members are spread across equally, I think probably achieves that.
So it's Project A, in a sense. You're the A team. That's a name which would be could be labelled at you. How does that appeal to you?
Yeah, there's loads of stuff that you can do with that. We've had a few suggestions. In St One, we could have the slogan "Hele" would be a good one. What we need to do now is have a sort of umbrella group featuring everybody that's in support of option A, various states members, various people from other campaigning groups, and organise ourselves, because at the end of the day our aim is the same. We want option A to win this referendum. As
far as we know, the Commission is now disbanded. It's not quite clear, but Senator Balash said the funds that they've got left they're going to give or offer to groups such as you're describing to fund the campaigns. So he talked about up to 3 groups. I don't know how he fixed on 3 groups, but up to 3 groups to argue the merits of the case. Would you be such a group applying for funding?
Yeah, definitely. The thing, because this is Jersey's first proper referendum, it needs to be treated really seriously, and it needs to be something that captivates the public, so everybody knows what the issues are, everyone can make an informed decision. But that becomes really difficult without money, simply because we'll want to print leaflets and post them to people's houses. We'll want to book public halls so we can have debates. We might want to put banners up around the island, that sort of thing. And without money, that becomes really difficult. You'd have to rely purely on donations from people, which can be quite hard to do.
Do you expect there are fairly clear rules about what amount of advertising you can undertake, paid advertising, that will apply to all? Do you think that's the sort of thing that will have to be done?
Well, yeah, everything will have to be equal. We can't have a situation where one campaign is funded much better than another and is able to, get in the JEP a lot more than the other, or have a banner that's 10 times bigger than another campaign. It has to be done equally, and it has to be transparent as well, with invoices for everything. And there should be a ceiling as well. There should be a maximum that the campaign
Under
should be
the project, the A option, all existing states members will lose their seats, and if the election takes place in 2015, 14, 2014, they haven't got long to get their own acts together. So if they're all going to lose their state seats, it might focus their minds. Where do you see the direction of your campaign immediately going? Because you haven't got long, you've only got till April before the referendum.
Well, I think we've been lucky in that we've been campaigning since around June last year, so we have a bit of a head start from that, which is helpful. We've had public meetings before, we've been on the radio, on the TV, etc. So hopefully people sort of vaguely know that we're out there and we are a group that people can approach. Because now that the referendum, we have a date for it, there'll be some people who might want to get involved, and if they're in favour of option A, at least they know, there's a group I can contact, whereas people for option B don't have that option. Who do you go to if you support option B?
Of course, there's no political label on going for option A. It's all, if there were parties, it's cross-party, it's across all views. Everybody presumably could subscribe to it if they're interested in a fairer representation. Presumably.
And we're non-politically affiliated. We don't, we're not attached to any left or right groups or any particular group of states members or anything like that. It is specifically non-politically affiliated, and we'd be up for anybody from any walk of life coming to join us, as long as they, agree with the same principles as us, that we want a simple, clear and fair system for Jersey.
Well, the simple system is just one option, really, isn't it? That's what you're asking for. Do you know yet where the opposition might be coming from? Got any ideas?
What, in terms of which individuals?
Which groups might be springing up? Who might be planning to oppose option A?
Well, the constables, many of them might do. There are a couple that are in favour of officially severing the link between the states and the parishes, but some of them are very vocal that they would like the link to continue. It would just be a case for some of them of whether they want to see super constituencies alongside with that, or the reduction in members, because it ultimately will mean that constables are going to have to take more roles in the states than they currently do, because with the reduced number, presumably that means an increased workload, especially in the context where not all of the districts in the states would represent the same number of people, so there will be more work for them to do.
We're already halfway through January. There's not long to be getting motivated and getting the public to understand what the discussion's all about. When does it come back to the states, do you know?
They have to debate the referendum law at some point. I seem to recall 19th of February was the date that was mentioned at the presentation. I don't know if you remember anything.
But that won't stop you in the meantime getting your campaign up and running and going and starting putting leaflets through, because what you want to say is a fairly simple message, really, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've been on the radio a couple of times since the official final recommendations were published. I was on the TV last night, so hopefully more of that. Trying to get other people like me that that want to go on the media to talk about it, that as well. One of the important things we want to do is try and get young people involved, because this is, for a lot of people, this will be quite exciting, to vote in a referendum, and it's on something that I think young people will probably relate to quite easily, because it's, as I said before, it's simple, clear and fair, and I think those are principles that most young people are pretty up for, a fair system, and hopefully that'll enthuse them. And they'll be a lot easier to engage with, because we have schools that, there's no reason why a school can't have an hour-long assembly for each side of the campaign to equally go up and take a platform, and that's something that I really hope they take on board. So that's one thing to start talking about as soon as possible.
We've been talking for 10 minutes. Most people's interest in politics extends to about a minute, if you're lucky. Do you think you can express what you want to say in a minute to catch people?
Yeah, we're going to have to, aren't we? We're lucky in that we can express what we want a lot easier than the other teams can, because we're arguing for something that's simple. One type of states member, all represent the same number of people, everyone's same number of votes. Simple, you can easily get that across in a minute.
Okay, that'll do for today. Thanks much indeed.